Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today I want to talk about a few tips you can do to kind of make your lead sounds more interesting. And they're very easy tips, but if you combine them right, you can kind of get a cool sound. I have a session open right now, which I made on Twitch with the help of some viewers, which was really fun. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so this is the session I'm talking about. We did a live stream where we did a couple of different things, as well as the last video. You can see that stuff up here. We did some sound design, and we also talked about interesting lead sounds, how you can make them more interesting. Now, as I said, I have two examples here. You can see the first one over here, and we have the second one down below here. Now, they might look very complex. You can see we have 4 tracks and 4 tracks plus 2 like audio recordings, but they're really not complicated if you know what you're doing. So I'm kind of gonna listen to let you listen to the different examples here, and then we'll kind of open them up and see what's going on, everything that's interesting. So that's the first lead here, and then we have the second version here. So that are both lead sounds. As you can hear, they're very metallic sounds in this case, but you can apply these tricks to any sound that you might have. Let's go into the first one here. This is the one that's a little bit more interesting because there's a little bit more stuff going on. But we start off with a main lead sound. And now, as you can see, there's not really much going on in terms of post-processing here. It's just a serum patch, which is a basic FM patch. I have covered this before. There's a video on my channel covering 5 different lead sounds, and one of them is this basic FM patch. As you can see, there's no effects going on. The only thing that's going on is that we're FMing a sine wave with a very harmonically rich wave, and that kind of creates a nice harmonic texture, and that's going through a bandpass filter, and we're automating the filter cutoff of the bandpass, as you can see by this filter cutoff section down below here. Now, on its own, this isn't really that interesting. If I also turn off all the processing that's on here, which we're gonna take a look at a little later, you can hear that it's really basic. So if we quickly turn this back on, as you can see, we also are doing a little bit of OTT saturation and stereo processing here. But again, as I said, that's not really the main thing that is making this lead sound work. What is making this lead sound work is all of these copies here. Now, what we're doing here is we're duplicating this patch here, and we're just adding different things. So this main one has some stereo processing, but here what we have is a delay effect. And what I've done here is I've set them, instead of on sync mode, I've set them on time mode, so you can dial in exact milliseconds. And then, of course, they are linked, so they both the left and the right channel are using the same timing here. And this kind of gives it a little bit of a metallic sound. So if I quickly turn that off, you can hear. You get that really hard metallic sound. I'm actually having to turn down my own volume a bit, and I'll have to work on that in the post-production a little bit so that it's not too loud. But what we're doing with that sound, with that long metallic sound, we don't always want it to play. We kind of want it to come in and kind of add a little bit to the rhythm. So if you can see here, what I'm actually doing is I'm actually turning it up either on the end of the note, or in this case, just after the note, so that it kind of adds a little bit of extra rhythm. So now if we play these two together, you can hear that it's kind of coming in and adding another rhythmic element to the lead. And the same kind of goes for all the other ones here. In this case, what I've set up is a filter or a little effect rack here, and we're making the audio go through either a phaser or a flanger, and doing that and setting these channels pan value kind of to the left and the right kind of adds a little bit to the stereo effect as well. So by doing parallel processing and then setting each chain to either a left or a right, not hard panning them, but just a little bit, can kind of add a little bit to the stereo shape of the whole thing. And then finally, again, we're EQing some a bit out of it, and then again we're turning off this effect when we don't want it. So I've set it here on the first note, and then we have it also on this last note here. So if I play this together with our main lead, it sounds like this. So again, that's a very subtle effect, but it kind of gives a little bit more power to these notes in particular here through the phaser and the flanger effects. The final layer we have here is using my tunable resonating spikes rack. 2 videos ago, I think I talked about forest leads, where I also used this rack here, and I left a link in the description. I'm gonna do that again if you want this rack. It's a really cool way to add a little bit of spiky resonance to your sound, and in this case we're using it the same way. You can kind of hear the spikes when we're automating all of these different parameters here. You can see we're automating the dry wet to kind of turn them off when we don't want them, and we're messing with the volumes of each of the spiky harmonic here in different ways. The only thing that I have set the same is the tuning, which you can do here. As you can see, this is tuned to G1, and so is the MIDI. So the tuning works with the key of the original sound. So those are the main sound sources we have. Now what can we do to kind of improve on them? I first want to talk about these things, which are these little snippets of the original recorded sound. And what I did here is I just played these sounds without, I believe without the reverb and maybe without a delay, I'm not sure. But I wanted to get kind of a dry signal, and what I then went in, I went in and tuned them up by, as you can see, by 2 octaves, and this one 3 octaves. And this kind of gives a little bit of an extra glitchy sound here. If you have seen my tutorial on glitchy effect sounds with the Beats warp mode, which is the warp mode we're using here, you will know what this does and how it kind of messes up your sound while still keeping the tonality of your sound. That's because, of course, the Beats mode was kind of made for drum sounds, but using it on these tonal sounds, which aren't percussive or have like transients and stuff, they kind of make it stutter a little bit while keeping it in the same key and the same tone of the original sound, which is a really cool way to kind of make glitchy beats. And finally we have this layer here, and what this layer is doing is I wanted to have a little bit of a delay on there, so I've just extracted this one sound here, added some fades, and now this is your delay sound. As you can see, it's a 100% wet delay, and after a little while we're just turning the wet signal down so we don't have the delay anymore. And this neatly goes into our next tip we have, which is to take a delay sound as part of a rhythm instead of as an ambient sound. What this allows you to do is it kind of makes you think more rhythmically about delay sounds. And for example, I've used it to add rhythmic parts to this first part of the sound while leaving it out of this part, so we can play around a little bit more with the rhythm here in the main part here. So this adds a little bit of rhythmic elements to the second bar here, which is a really cool trick. And we're taking that to the next step by actually doing the same thing on the delay here. As you can see, whenever the main rhythm is playing, we have turned off the delay, and when we want a delay, we turned it on. And in this case I did it on the parts where the main rhythm isn't playing, and also when our second delay here isn't playing. So that would leave us with these 2 parts here, which have a little bit of extra delay. So altogether, without the reverb, let's say, that makes it sound like this. You can really hear that both of the delays kind of come through whenever there's a little bit of emptiness. Here you can hear that second delay we have, and here you can really hear that first delay we had turning on. So now let's finally talk about the reverb. I've also shown off this trick earlier on my channel. I believe it was in the forest lead sounds, which as of recording was uploaded today on the channel. But what we're doing here is we're adding kind of a reverb sweep whenever we feel like there's not enough space, or there's not enough going on in any point of our lead line here. Now, how this works is that we have a dry and a wet channel, and by choosing where the input is going, or where the output is taken from with this chain selector, we can actually keep sending the reverb or the original signal to the reverb and kind of building up that reverb sound, that long reverb tail, which you can see here is 10 seconds, while not hearing it. And then when we want to hear it, we just turn up this chain selector for it, so that the reverb actually starts to come through. And that way, even when the dry wet is at 0, we'll still build up that reverb sound inside the reverb processor itself, but we won't actually hear it until we turn it up. So that kind of gives you this effect. This also gives you a lot more control over the volume of your reverb over time. As you can see, it just cuts off here when the new note starts to come in, so that it kind of sweeps up and then just randomly cut, or not randomly, but at a certain point it kind of cuts off, which is something that you were normally not able to do with a reverb. Normally you just dial in your settings and hope that they don't overlap. But this way it kind of makes it a little bit cleaner, and whenever the new note starts, the reverb just turns off and you don't have any problems with maybe like too much stuff going on at once or stuff like that. So this was the very first example, and in the second example we're actually basically doing the same thing. If I go to here, you can see we start off with another simple lead sound, which just, if we turn off all of our processing here, it just sounds like this. And I'm also going to turn off the delay for now. So this is again a very simple patch. If we go in here, you can see there's a little bit more going on with the actual patch itself. What I've done in this case is I have taken 2 harmonic waves and a sub, and what I've done is if you go look over here, you can see, well, not in this case, but in some cases you should be able to see that we're squarifying the lead or the sound here by turning down all of the odd harmonics here. And it's not very clean at this point, but that's because of the way it kind of morphs between sounds, and the morphing is kind of off here. But I use the squarify thing to get rid of either the odd or the even harmonics. In this case we've done the even. Again, it's not perfect because of the way it kind of morphs and the morphing settings here. But it doesn't really matter. The point is that we have a lot of harmonic mass here, and this was kind of a cool way to start it off. To actually do that, what you can do is you can go to multis and then use this. Squarify will take away all the odd harmonics, and then squarify alt will take away all the even harmonics. So that's how I achieved that. And this is just a way to kind of create a cool texture. And then we're using the sub to FM those with a sine wave. And again, the main bulk of the sound actually comes from the filter, which we are modulating in this case with a macro, and then we're automating the macro over time. As you can see, the reason why I sometimes do it with a macro is because then I have a little bit more control over the range later on. So I can dial in my automation, but if I then figure that my range is a little bit too high, I can just come in and maybe turn it down or up or something. Finally, there's a little bit of processing going on. As you can see, the compressor is turned off. So let's turn that off for now, so it's a little bit easier to see. There's a little bit of stereo winding going on, nothing crazy here. So again, a very simple patch to start off with. We are doing some compression and limiting to start off, and cleaning out the signal bit, getting rid of some of the excess stereo here. And then I had just an analyzer to kind of check what I was doing. But then quickly we come into the delay here. Now what I've done here is I've actually turned the delay, or put the delay on just one of these 4 channels. So a way to keep your delay kind of clean from all of these other effect channels here is to just throw it on your main sounds channel, so that you have something like this. And again, as you can see, we're just turning it on sporadically whenever we feel like it. For example, in this empty space here and in this empty space here, we have delay. But whenever there's notes playing, we turn it off, as well as here, where I actually had a reverb tail later on the master or on the group bus here, which we're going to talk about. Now the effects again are very similar. We're using again my resonate spike. This was the actual lead on which I designed this idea, and I came up with this actual lead a long time ago, but we kind of revisited it on the last stream I did. But yeah, this is the resonate spike where it was made for. It was a really cool effect. I wanted to kind of try different things out with the corpus, and we succeeded really well. And again, in this case, we're using it to kind of add a little bit of resonating spikes on top, which sounds like this. Now, as you can hear, this is a very stereo signal. Because this lead is mainly being played mono, as you can see, we have the width at 40% here. I wanted these effects to be a little bit more stereo, and I have this stereo knob here. And what this does, if we go into the actual rack, into the main one, as you can see, if you look at the panning of these 4 tracks which make up the effect, you can see that they're being hard panned left and right in this case. So you sometimes, because we're also automating the volume of each of these individual racks, you sometimes get the left channel to kind of open up, or either the right. As you can see now, only the left channels are playing here, and that quickly snaps down. And then here, in this case, we also, or we only have the right channel really outputting any sound. So that's a really cool way to kind of get that bouncing effect and add a little bit more interesting stuff to the stereo part of your layer, or the stereo part of your lead sound. And again, it's just a cool effect. And for the rest, we again have the stereoscope here. I turned off the utility, and we have some filtering going on. I don't really know what I was doing with the filtering. Probably just making sure that it wasn't ringing as much as I wanted to be here. It kind of filters in the effect as opposed to having it on all the time, which would sound like this. To kind of have it a little bit less in there as you would normally have. Now the second one effect, or the second one, as you can see, it's the exact same effect here, where you have a phaser and a flanger both being panned, one left and one right. And we're using this macro here to set delay time as well as the frequency to kind of make the sound move a little bit over time in the way as we define it here. And there are some few effects on here. As you can see, this one is a little bit more mono, and we also are compressing it a little bit. And again, we're not filtering this one, so this EQ is just here to kind of remove the lowest low end and the highest high end from that thing. And we're also automating the gain here. So in some parts I wanted to just turn off the gain, so the effect is not as hard on every note. So here we just turn off the effect by turning the volume down to -infinity, so you can't actually hear this track on the start. So we just have these few notes which kind of, this one kind of fades in, and this is nice and plucky, and then we have one open note here. So again, if you're using these kind of effects, it's really cool to have a utility or any volume slider after it to kind of turn them off whenever you don't need them, and that way you can kind of add variation to it. And then the final one here, again, we're using the exact same effect. We have the delay here, and we're again using a utility to add certain parts to the note. Now, as you can see, what I've done here is actually this note is being affected by this effect, so by the flanger filter rack, and then the other note in this kind of little bounce section is affected by our delay thing I showed off before, where you have the delay time set up this way. So that kind of varies each note in which effect it's using. This is also the way we added that extra rhythm, which you heard when I played the full thing. That's also being done by the delay. And as you can see, yeah, we're using again the utility, and there's not really anything else going on. So what you can kind of get from this is that you can just use the same patch again, because this is again all the same patch from Serum coming through, and just use these kind of effects which really add to the sound, and then kind of sequence them through the utility here to get different sounds out of them. And then finally, again, to get that reverb effect, we also have our reverb coming in and kind of doing different things. So as you can hear, where we have this emptiness where there wasn't a delay, as you remember, we kind of have the reverb sweep here. So that sounds like this all together. So I hope that helps make your own leads a little bit more interesting. These are a few tips I can give you. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to let me know. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.